Hey guys, and welcome back to the channel. This is TheSketchMonkey here. Today we're having a look at this beauty in radiant red. It's a $500 color option. This is a 2024 Chevy Traverse with the Z71 package, meaning that we do have a little bit of off-road goodies here. For example, we do have a 1.2-inch lift. We also have the all-terrain tires with the Goodyear Wranglers back here, and I absolutely love this styling. There's just a couple of things with the drivetrain that I would personally want to switch out for this specific car. We don't have the V6 anymore. Instead, we do have the inline 4, the turbocharged inline 4, and that feels, for a 5,000 pound vehicle like this, I much rather have a naturally aspirated V6, and it also sounds so much better. This engine, when we take this for a drive in a minute later on in this video, just doesn't sound right, specifically not with a styling like this. So what we're gonna do in this video is have a look at this design from a front, side, rear, and also the interior, of course, before we take this for a drive. Now, starting with the front end design of the 2024 Chevy Traverse Z71. I do like the styling here, specifically compared to the previous generation, which looks a little bit like a minibus. Now it has a very, very confident look to it. Love the daytime run lights up here that also functions as the indicators, as you can see right here. Very crisp and sharp, and yes, we do have bumper headlights in this case. You can see that the main headlights sit all the way down here, and this is proper bumper headlights, full LED, of course, high beams and low beams. A couple of changes that I would like to change here in the front end is, you see this piece right here and this trim piece around the headlights, it sort of has this tinted chrome feel to it, and this is the only spot on the car that has that type of finish to it. So I would want to have this be completely blacked out like we have down here and also in the grille. And this sort of square that we have around here feels a little out of place. I would want to remove this pretty much altogether. There's no functionality up here, but we do have an air slot down here that is indeed functional. This being the Z71 package, you can see that we have the Z71 badge here in the grille. Like the design of the grille, front-mounted camera right there, and the Z71 also comes with these red tow hooks in the front end. Of course, we gotta have red tow hooks. You also have a skid plate underneath for when you're deciding to take this on the trail. But the proportions of the front, it has a very boxy design to it, and that is something that I definitely think looks a lot better than the previous generation that had this, as I said, more of a minibus styling to it. You can see just how confident it is with the upright front end. The hood design looks pretty clean as well, specifically in this radiant red, which is an optional color for this car, $500 option for the color itself. Now, coming around to the side view of the 2024 Traverse, when I first got this, I thought this was such a big vehicle. It was a lot bigger than I was expecting it to be. And you can see that here in the proportions as well. We still have the very boxy design. It looks almost like a Chevy Tahoe in the proportions, but this being the smaller sibling, we do have a little bit more styling features here. And I love the Z71 package because it comes with 1.2 inches of lift, which is great when you take this on the trails. You also have these 18-inch wheels with the Goodyear all-terrain tires, 265 tires all around, and I do think it looks great with this two-tone wheel. The Traverse badge is blacked out on the side. You do have the 360 camera right here, indicator, of course, LED, $1,500 option up top with the big sunroof going all the way back to the passenger seat. And the styling overall here, this is what differentiates this from the Tahoe. For example, this line down here that dips downwards, adding styling features like this, you can do that on the smaller sibling. And we also have this shark fin design right here, which I think looks beautiful, with a nice chamfer going around this piece and into the rear end. Beautifully done. The overall styling, I think Chevy nailed it when it comes to the exterior design of the Traverse. Pretty traditional looking door handles here. You can lock it right there and you can open it up just like you would a normal door. We're gonna have a look at the interior in just a minute. Now, if you look at the trim going around the greenhouse here, for example, this is all blacked out as well. And that is the main reason why I don't think this type of styling or finish suits the Traverse. I just wanna have that be in the same finish like we have all over this car. The proportions from our side view, very clean, very boxy. And as we come around to the rear end here, the designer said that they wanted to emphasize the width of this car. And you can clearly see that. I mean, just have a look at the taillights, how they both up top just stretch out the width on the top part and stretch downwards, planting this car visually with this LED going downwards. I like how this goes so far into the side because it does exactly what the designer intended it to do, which is of course emphasize the width of the car. Blacked out graphics back here as well with the black Chevy logo. We do have a splash of chrome here, rear mounted camera located right there, and all the way down we do have quad exhaust pipes, which is standard on every single Traverse for 2024, and I do think it looks very, very clean to have quad pipes like that. It looks aggressive. I'm glad to see the pipes visually like this, that they start to implement that on more and more new cars to have them be visible on the outside. So we can pop up the trunk here. It is power assisted in this case. You can see that we do have 3 rows for this car. If you want to fold down the rear seats, very easy to do that. Just pull this and push this forward. If we pull this even further, then you can see it goes down all the way and you got a lot more space back here. Underneath here, we do have more storage. As you can see, no spare tire down here, but it is a pretty deep bin for extra storage, of course, and you have some tie downs here on the sides as well, and that's pretty much it for the trunk. So let's close this back up, and before we have a look at the interior, let's check out what is actually powering this for 2024, and that is where I think they could have done it. I just want to have it. Look at the size of this thing, 5,000 pounds. An inline 4 with a turbo, it has more power than before, but you also have to keep in mind that this 4-cylinder now has to move all this mass. We're going to talk about the fuel economy later on as well and how that affects the fuel economy and also the range. Under the hood of the Chevy Traverse for 2024, we do have a 2.5-liter inline 4. It is turbocharged, putting out 328 horsepower, which is a lot for a 2.5-liter 4-cylinder. 326 pound-feet of torque connected to an 8-speed automatic transmission. You also have all-wheel drive, of course, this being the Z71 package. 0 to 60 though in about 7.5 seconds. Fuel economy comes in at 19 city, 24 highway, which isn't great. I would expect more for a 4-cylinder, but that is when the weight comes in at almost 5,000 pounds, 4,800 pounds for this Traverse. Price as tested here comes in at $54,545. So those are the specs for the 2024. I don't know about you, but do you miss the V6 in the Traverse, or do you prefer the turbocharged inline 4 that we have here? Let me know in the comments below. So with that said, let's close it back up and let's jump in and have a look at this interior, because it is a pretty cool looking interior. It has the biggest infotainment screen you can find in this segment at 17.7 inches. It is essentially a TV on the dash. You don't have any memory seats in the door here for the Z71. You do have that on the RS trim. Further down, we do have the automatic down for the windows, for the automatic on all of these, but automatic up only for the driver. I don't understand how hard is it to put an automatic for at least the front side passengers here. It should be standard on pretty much every single car. You have the controls for the mirrors here as well, some red accents, some trim levels here, looking pretty cool and sporty. Aluminum finish on the door handle itself, storage down here, and you do have the Bose sound system. 8-way adjustable seat for the driver. Not a lot of bolstering here on the side. We're gonna have a look at the seats in detail in just a minute as well. So let's jump in here. Let's quiet this chime, Chevy chime, and let's fire this car up. You have the start button down here. And here you can see the big, massive infotainment screen. We also have Super Cruise for this specific Traverse. It is standard on the RS. It is an option for the Z71. Let's turn up the hazards. Up top, we do have a camera, or you can have the regular mirror if you want to. I usually just have the regular mirror because I don't know, it just feels more natural to me to have it like that. We can pop the camera open for this segment here. So up top we do have an 11-inch gauge cluster. This is fully customizable. I love the design of the gauge cluster here. Even though we don't have a housing for it, you can see that we have some styling features. It feels like the designers put in some effort to make this feel integrated and welcome in the interior, and you can see that it slots in here. It follows the curvature of the dash itself. So pressing this button right here, you have a bunch of different views here. You have full camera view, or I mean full map view, which is cool to have. You have the driver assistant view here as well, in addition to a very clean and minimalistic style. I prefer to have it in the regular style like this. With the tachometer, you have the outside temperature, the date, the range. By the way, the range is fantastic on this truck. I just filled it up a couple of days ago and I got over 500 miles of range until empty, which is great. Now, looking at this massive 17.7-inch infotainment screen here, wireless Apple CarPlay, which I love. I also like the design of this screen because you can see how it curves here, and you would expect the screen to cut off here. But the screen itself extends all the way to this point, to this corner, and this gives it a more quality feel than to just have the styling be like this on the outside and then have the screen be square. This looks great. You also have a small little dial up top for the volume. You can see that we have a small display inside of this volume knob here, or dial, and I think it looks great, this integration. And the system itself is very responsive. As I said, wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. If you want to do that, I usually have that on all the time. You have a bunch of different settings here for the car itself, which you can figure out there. You have connections, connect your phone here if you want to do that. Going into the home button here, we can go into the navigation itself. Native navigation looks very crisp and very clean, using Apple's system, of course, making it look very nice. So going into this view here, you can have the screen here and whatever information you want on the sides, tire pressure, for example. And we also have these small buttons here. So this is sort of shortcuts. Lane keep assist. If you want to turn that off, you just hit this icon here, and I love that. I don't want to go into the software itself to turn that off because I always want to have that be off. You also have the settings for the light settings for the headlights integrated in the dash or the infotainment screen itself. Going into the camera button here, you can see that we do have full 360 camera, bunch of different views, front view. You have the side views as well, which is great if you decide to take this on the trail. So the camera system here is great, high resolution, looking beautiful. And you have some more settings here for when you take this on the trail. For example, hill descent control here, and the traction control, you can turn that on and off. Now, what I love about this integration here of this specific system is, if you look down here, we have a bunch of settings for the climate control settings down here at the bottom. And it would be okay to just have those right here, and that would be it for the climate settings. But Chevy decided to add the same systems the same functions that we have here down in the bottom for physical knobs and buttons, and I love that. You have the fan speed here, the temperature dial down here, very easy to adjust when you're on the go and on the highway. You don't have to look where you're pressing your finger. You also have heated seats in 3 different levels, no ventilated seats in this car. But overall, having a 17.7-inch gauge infotainment screen like we have here, I honestly don't think it looks too bad because the integration looks clean. It is one single line going here into the side. I also like, as I said, the design of the screen itself. It doesn't feel like it's intruding in the interior. The integration looks great. We have the same red texture here, material that we have on the doors coming back in the dash. I kind of like it. It looks pretty cool. Some chrome trim over here going into the vent of the passenger. We don't have a head-up display here. I'm totally fine with that. I'm not a huge fan of head-up displays anyway. Further down low, we have a steep wireless charging pad here with 2 ridges on the side, rubberized, meaning that your phone is not going to go anywhere, and this actually charges your phone even if you have a fat case on the phone, which is pretty unusual to see. 2 USBs, USB-C, USB regular, and you have a cigarette outlet there as well. 2 cup holders, and this is what the key itself looks like. Pretty standard looking key for the Chevy. You have a Chevy logo on the back. You have wireless remote start here. You can also open the trunk, lock and unlock, of course. 2 cup holders, as we talked about. A bit of a storage compartment here, a smaller storage compartment. Not a huge fan of the gloss plastic that we have here, because as you can see, it gets very, very dirty very quick. But you have the big storage underneath the armrest with this bin that you can take out. Down here we do have an LED. However, we don't have any sort of connectivity here, no USBs or anything like that, just an LED light, and that's it. The armrest itself is pretty hard. It's not as soft as I would expect this to be, but I do like the red stitching that we have going on here. 2 cup holders back there for the passengers as well. Now looking at these seats, not the sportiest looking seats, but they do hold you in place when you're just doing some everyday driving. I would like to see a little bit more bolstering on the sides here to really hold you in place when you go on the trails. You have the Z71 embroidered into the headrests, looking very, very nice. I love when companies do this. Just makes the model feel a little bit more special. Now coming to the steering wheel here, and we do have paddles, as you can see, on each side, but this does not control the 8-speed automatic. Instead, what these paddles do, if we go into low gear, these actually control the revs or the shifts when you're in low gear. That's it for the paddles themselves. The gear selector has been moved from the center console to the side of the steering wheel, and how you go into drive, you push it towards you and down. Go into reverse, you push it towards you and up. It's going to pop up the reverse camera, of course, and putting it into park, you just press this button right here on the side, and that's it for the gear selector. The steering wheel itself, very fat up top, because we do have the Super Cruise LED integrated right here, and this is a system that is very, very good on the highway. It initiates and it follows through with even line changes. All you got to do is put the indicator on, and the car itself would move itself into whatever lane you want to go into. It works very well. It does need to have a clear view of your face though, so you can't cover this up, or you can't hold your arm like this, because Super Cruise is going to disengage if you do that. On the right side, we have the controls for the heated steering wheel, the function for customizing the gauge cluster, the voice command, and some phone buttons. Here on the left side, we have the low gear, the Super Cruise button, and some cruise control settings on the left spoke. The steering wheel itself looks very nice. We have a small little Chevy logo, like this little chamfer that goes underneath it, and we have a special wheel for the Z71. Again, making this trim level just feel a little bit more special by adding stuff like this, and onto the headrest seat there, the logo of the Z71 itself. On the left side, auto stop start on and off, all-wheel drive, and the drive mode. So you have 5 different drive modes. You have normal, sport, off-road, terrain, or tow haul, and I like to keep it in normal. I do like the graphics, how it changes up. It looks very beautiful, high resolution, beautiful looking Traverse here on the graphics itself. We can keep it in sport for now, for when we take this for a drive later on. Some more chrome trim here on the door, as you can see, and underneath here you have more storage underneath the center armrest itself. Looking up top, we do have some storage for your sunshades, and of course the big, huge panoramic sunroof that is a $1,500 option. Something that I personally would not go for. I'm just fine with just having a standard roof, or maybe a standard size sunroof. So with that said, let's have a look at the back seat. This is my driving position. We are in park, so let's jump back there and check out if I can fit behind my own driving position. We have 3 rows, as we talked about before, 2 seats for the center portion here, and we have 3 climate zones here as well. Looking at the door panel, soft touch materials here with the red stitching coming back. So let's jump in here, check this out. This being such a big vehicle, I was not worried about the leg space, and as you can see, the leg space is great. Head space as well. I mean, I have tons of space here thanks to this very straight roofline that we have going across. And you have the controls for the climate control settings down in the middle, with some modes where you want the air to blow out from, the fan speed itself, and you have the temperature controls here. So we can turn this off for now. 2 USBs, a house outlet, and some storage all the way down low. Now looking at the third seats here, looks pretty cramped back here, but for kids, I guess this would be completely fine. Decent amount of legroom if you're not over 6 feet, and also the headroom look decent as well, because you can see that we do have a carved out portion at the top there. So beautifully done with this interior. I'm honestly surprised for what you're paying for this car. All the features that you get, the big 17.7-inch infotainment screen and the beautiful gauge cluster and the graphics as well with the physical knobs and controls for the climate control settings. I think this interior is absolutely fantastic. It looks great, it feels great, feels premium. So with that said, let's go ahead and take this Traverse for a drive, and let's talk a little bit about the new powertrain, the 4-cylinder, and compare it to the old V6. All right, let's take the 2024 Chevy Traverse for a drive, and let's see what this is all about. So the thing about this though, when you compare it to the old one, it's better in every single aspect except when we talk about the drivetrain. The drivetrain is not one of my favorite features here. The inline 4 at this size of a vehicle, this size, this type of weight, it just feels like the 4-cylinder, even though it's turbocharged at 328 horsepower, 326 pound-feet of torque, it always feels like it's, I don't know, for me it feels like it's working overtime all the time. I would much rather have a naturally aspirated V6 than the 4-cylinder that we have here, like we had in the previous Traverse. And this is based on the same platform as the previous Traverse. It's just a massive update. I mean, specifically when you look at the interior here, it's night and day if you compare it to the old one. The old one had the biggest screen size, and the old one was 8 inches for the old 2023 Traverse, and now we have a 17.7. It's more than double the size. But as I said, I don't feel like the screen itself is sort of intruding in the interior. It actually looks surprisingly good when I look at this car. So let's turn the traction control back on. You do that by pressing this button, go to traction control right there, and that's about it. We can go into home screen, go into vehicle status. Let's check what that is. Gauges. You have a bunch of different gauges here. Transmission fluid, temp, coolant, temp. You have battery voltage, oil pressure, oil temperature. Looking pretty cool. So let's floor it here. Now 0 to 60 is about 7.5 seconds. So it's not a very, very quick SUV. But it doesn't really bother me that much. I'm not looking for a 0 to 60 time in 4 seconds in this car. It's not something I want. We are in sport now. And I guess the difference here is that it holds the revs a little longer, which is totally fine. But let's put it back into normal. Just cruise along here as we go along. So I don't know about you, the fuel economy here, 24 highway, it's very, very similar to the old V6 that we had. And that is something that not a lot of, look at this beautiful E-Type here. Wow. Convertible E-Type. Sorry about that. That's something that not a lot of people think about when you always think that smaller, less cylinders, smaller displacement is gonna help the fuel economy, but that is not always the case, because you need to think about what type of package are you putting this drivetrain in, and that is the reason why the fuel economy with this 4-cylinder is very similar to the fuel economy we had with the old V6. But let's quickly come to a complete stop before we get traffic behind us, and let's do a 0 to 60. Let's go. $50, and we're up to 60. And the engine noise as well. I mean, this sound that comes out of this engine doesn't feel like it suits this type of beautiful styling and package overall. It feels like a small little Honda Civic, the noise that comes out from this, and that is not something I want. I mean, honestly, with this big of a hood and this much mass, I wouldn't be opposed to just slapping a V8 into this, even though I know it's not, part of the times that we're in right now, but it would make sense to me. Overall, driving in everyday traffic like this, it is a very, very comfortable car. I do think it has a lot to do with the suspension, that it's more tuned to off-road with the Z71 package. You do have a 1.2-inch lift, of course, compared to other Traverses, so that helps with the ground clearance. Just over 8 inches of ground clearance in total. Coming out to the highway here, let's floor it again. 40, 50, going downhill now, and we're up to 70 right there. Gonna test out Super Cruise here on the highway and see how that functions. It's actually one of the best adaptive cruise controls settings, I guess, I have ever experienced. It's so smooth. So we're coming into the middle lane here, pressing the Super Cruise button. You can see that it turns green, and now we're just cruising along here. No problems at all. You need to keep the hand on the steering wheel at some times. And I'm not sure why it just tried to change lane there when I didn't put the indicator on. That was weird. So totally fine. Just, it's very relaxing to have a system like this. You're still in control of the car, but it does those small things that's in the back of your mind when you're driving. It does those things automatically. So let's try and turn lane or switch lanes here. So I'm gonna go into the left lane, just turn the indicator on, auto lane change, and we're done. I just held the steering wheel and it does everything automatically. So the Super Cruise works really well, and it's a great feature to have specifically on long road trips when you just want to relax a little bit. So overall, the 2024 Chevy Traverse, would I go for the RS, the top of the line, or this one? I think I would go for the Z71, just because I do believe, personally I do feel like this type of car, a big SUV, it just makes sense to have a bit more aggressive all-terrain tires on here with the 18-inch wheels instead of the sportier top-of-the-line RS. So I would go for this one and also save a little bit of money. And that's my review of the 2024 Chevy Traverse Z71. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.